Welcome to the New Little Life podcast. My name is Allison. I'm a lactation consultant, a breast pump expert, and a mom of 3 little boys. Here on the podcast, we talk with real moms and experts about breastfeeding and pumping. This podcast is designed to help you feel supported by other moms who are doing exactly what you're doing, to get tips and tricks on breastfeeding, and learn how to efficiently navigate pumping while going back to work. All right, welcome back to the New Little Life podcast. I'm so happy that you're still here with us. We are well into season 2 now, and we've been talking with a lot of moms who are combining breastfeeding and pumping. And as we know, this is not always an easy thing to do. And breastfeeding at the breast and pumping are really 2 different skill sets. So I'm excited to talk with our guest today, who has some really good experience pumping and has done a lot. She's got her little baby here with us today, who's, I think, 7 months. Is he 7 months old, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's exciting. So you might hear him squeaking in, and we love that too. So our guest today is Anna. She is a wife and mother of 3 and co-owner of 3 businesses with her husband, Randy, a safety consulting firm, a photography studio, and a firearms training business. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and is a certified firearms instructor. And before becoming a business owner, she spent 10 years working with adults and children with developmental disabilities. So welcome to the podcast, Anna. I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, you have such an interesting background, and we were chatting a little bit before we started recording how we had some similarities there as well. I'm from Idaho, so firearms are not a new thing to me, and I enjoy taking classes and learning there too. So this is going to be really fun because I feel like you have some interesting life scenarios, and I would love to hear how you navigated breastfeeding and pumping in some of these things. So why don't you take us back to the beginning and start at the beginning and tell us a little bit about your first and what that experience was like, what struggles you had. Just start there.
All right. Well, my first pregnancy, I really wanted to do everything as naturally as possible. I was all diving in deep to researching how to have an unmedicated birth and all of that kind of thing. And my family has all been breastfeeders. So I had family and friends that had breastfed. I kind of thought, as long as I was sort of aware of how things should be done, it would be easy because that's how it had seemed for all of my family and friends. So I did read like half of a book, which looking back, I wish I would have done more preparation on breastfeeding with how things turned out. But I did have my unmedicated birth. Everything went smoothly. And so I thought, well, here, it's going to be smooth from here on out. We're just going to put baby to the breast and everything's going to be great. Well, it wasn't so great, but I had a hard time figuring that out. Come to find out, he wasn't transferring effectively at the breast. And they told me he's supposed to have so many diapers a day. And so I called back to the hospital, like on the 3rd day when he didn't have enough dirty diapers. And they were like, well, it could be normal, just keep watching him. Took him to the pediatrician. Hadn't gained enough weight, but it could be okay. Just keep latching. So it was kind of like that for 3 weeks until I finally made an appointment with a lactation consultant and went in to see her in person. And she turned out to be amazing and wonderful. So she looked at the baby, looked at what was going on, put her finger in his mouth, and she was like, he cannot get enough milk. He's not getting enough milk. His weight gain is not good. And so I feel like I'm like, having to take all of this in. What? Things aren't going well. I put baby at the breast. It's supposed to be easy. So she basically told me I would have to start pumping 8 to 12 times a day to bring in a supply because the baby hadn't been removing enough milk. My body didn't know to make enough. So I was just like completely overwhelmed. Took him to the doctor. The doctor said he needed formula that very day. He said, don't go home, go straight to the store and get formula. So I'm like, really devastated and overwhelmed. So I went home, had to figure out how to hook up my pump. I had not, taken it out of the box. I had to figure out how to start pumping, keeping a baby calm while I'm pumping all these times every day. The first full day that I pumped, almost pretty much exclusively, I got 12 ounces, which is, I hope your listeners, if they're breastfeeding, no, that's not nearly enough.
Not for a day. Nope.
At 3 weeks, you should be getting probably 24 ounces in a day. Yeah. So we were supplementing with about half formula. Thankfully, the baby took a bottle fine. So we started bottle feeding mostly. And I just kept pumping and pumping and pumping and power pumping. And eventually I saw those numbers creep up. I was getting, 16 ounces in a 24-hour period, and then 20 ounces. And then finally, around 11 weeks, I was getting enough that I didn't have to use formula. In the middle of that, we got my baby assessed for ties, and he did have ties revised at 5 weeks. That was as soon as we could get him in with the doctor. So we had that, and then he couldn't even latch as well as he had been latching because he had to relearn
everything. It's also
everything.
Yeah.
So we did like nipple shields and SNS, trying to get him back to the breast. It was a lot. And thankfully, I had such a wonderful lactation consultant that was able to help me. She was the one that said, listen, you're not going to be able to latch the baby all the time and pump all the time and take care of him all the time. You're going to have to prioritize. And right now you need a supply. So you're going to have to prioritize pumping to get your supply in. So I just kept going back to her. Whenever I would get overwhelmed, I would just go back. And then I was headed back to work at 12 weeks. I remember the office called me. I had 12 weeks of FMLA coverage for my job. Mm-hmm. I'm sure many of your listeners have that.
That's about right. In the US for sure.
They called me. I was in the parking lot of we did oral motor therapy. I don't know if I mentioned that after the tongue tie release to try to retrain his mouth. So we were seeing a speech therapist for oral motor therapy, I think weekly. I was in the parking lot heading into our appointment, and the job called me and was like, so you're going to have to come back next Wednesday or you're losing your job. And I was like, I'll see you on Wednesday. I'm not coming back a second before I need to, but I will see you. I'm not losing my job. So I went back to work. I saw the lactation consultant before I went back to work because that's the whole thing to figure out. I've been doing this pumping around the clock, taking care of the baby around the clock. Now I'm going to be leaving milk and, pumping milk and storing it and just so many logistics to figure out. So I met with her and she was amazing, helped me come up with a plan. She suggested, since I had an office with a door, that I try to shoot for 4 pumps a day at work. Okay. And that way I would only have to do 3 or 4 at home based on how things were going. So that would make it more manageable for me to, come home and do the whole after work routine and manage all of the pumping. She also said at that point that we were doing the weighted feeds and all of that. He was transferring well enough that I didn't have to pump overnight because my supply was to a point that it was in, and he was doing, a little bit better with transferring. So that was a huge relief. Heading back to work, I wasn't waking up because I had been waking up every 3 hours overnight, and then, bottle feeding in the night. It was a lot. So I went back to work, and it actually went better than expected with her help. I just think about anyone that's listening to these type of podcasts or looking into your program. If you don't have that support, it's just so overwhelming to navigate everything.
It's a lot. And it sounds like you went through, a lot in the first 12 weeks. And then you're right. You barely get your feet under you. And then you're expected to go back to work and now manage all of those things you were managing at home with your baby on maternity leave, at work, and now your baby's at childcare. And it's the logistics alone are just, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I think you're right. Having that support, someone that can walk you through it and kind of help you along so you don't have to reinvent the wheel at every single step, I think is really important. Hearing you describe triple feeding is what they call it when you're feeding at the breast and bottle feeding and pumping. That is exhausting. And I'm so glad that your lactation consultant told you as early as, 3 to 5 weeks, this is not sustainable. So we got to pick and choose here and readjust our goals while we figure this out. I think that was really kind and really important of her to tell you that so that you weren't triple feeding for ever. That is exhausting. So yes, please tell us how you managed to do all of that.
Yeah. And I essentially triple fed, doing all 3 of those things for over 18 months, but I had to make it doable. I didn't triple feed in the way that you think about you're nursing at the breast every feed and then pumping and then bottle feeding every single feed. I had to, trim that back and make it manageable. But I had 4 sets of pump parts because that way I only had to wash once a day.
Yeah.
With using the fridge hack, which at the time the lactation consultant was able to tell me to do that. I know now there's, CDC recommendations, but that wasn't an issue at the time. She told me.
CDC recommendations also aren't super clear on that. So, I mean, as a lactation consultant, I usually just provide the information and let moms choose. If you have a healthy baby and they're over 3 months and things are going okay and you feel comfortable with that, I usually leave it up to the moms. I get that.
Well, I'm glad because that's the only way I could have possibly made it work.
That's the thing. What you just said right there. Sometimes it's the only way we can make this work. And if you're comfortable with the risks, which are honestly minimal, they are there. We can't ignore that. But if the mother's comfortable with that and this is how they have to do it to make it work, no judgment from me. So
I had 4 sets. I had a Spectra S1, and I had 4 sets of pump parts. I would use the sanitize cycle on my dishwasher once a day with all the parts in there. So that made that easier. At first, once they told me to pump round the clock, I was like still trying to bottle feed sort of on demand, but I had to scrap that. When I wake up, I'm going to wake the baby up and get some milk in him too.
Okay.
Because that way we were only waking up every 3 hours instead of
totally,
on a good night if he would sleep in between feeds. So that helped. She helped me figure out how to sleep while I was pumping. If the baby was sleeping, you just put pillows around you. And if your pump doesn't have an auto shut off, I don't know if there are any that don't do that, but the Spectra shuts off at 30 minutes. So you don't have to worry that you're just going to fall asleep and just keep being pumped. I know now there's the Willow yeah,
but most people don't have that.
Down.
So it's interesting to hear how you manage that. So just kind of propped up and pumping and just dozing off while you're doing that. Awesome. I love it. Quite a few pumps actually don't have the auto shut off. So just check your pump and see if it does. But a lot of them do. And I really like that feature too. So then, especially if you want to pump while you're working or sleeping or whatever, you can just let it go and know it'll shut off. And you're like, okay, I'm done. So that's awesome. Did you like your Spectra 1 pump?
I did. And I'm actually still using it this time. I got a Willow Go with my insurance this time just to see if that would help with the different businesses that I'm doing this time to be able to move around. But I haven't used it as much as I would like to. But I have hooked it up a couple of times and I like it. But I do like the Spectra S1. We had Hurricane Harvey in my area when my baby was 8 weeks old last time. And so being able to just charge it in the car for a while every day when we lost power and then have it run on battery was amazing. So
that's the kind of stuff you don't think about until it's there and you got to deal with it. But you're right. They have the little cigarette lighter adapter or even USB. Do they have USB adapters for the Spectra 1? What an awesome idea.
Yeah. And I was able to move around a little bit. It's not like a portable pump, but you can pick it up and move. You don't have to be attached to a wall. So that's what I did when I was at home to manage all of the pumping. I propped the baby up in a boppy to feed him his bottles while I was pumping. So to kind of that triple feeding cycle can get so long that you're basically doing nothing else. Yeah. So the more you can combine things during a triple feeding situation, the more you can have a break to change diapers and everything else that has to happen.
Shower or
right
yourself. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's a really good idea. Finding a way to feed a baby while you're pumping, so that you can just do it at the same time. Yeah.
And also then he was less likely to just be wailing the whole time, which is not conducive to getting a letdown. If your baby is just screaming and you can't make them stop, just being all stressed out about that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I did a lot of figuring out what would get a bigger letdown, deep breathing and I had calming music playing and I was doing everything I could do. I was visualizing waterfalls of milk and warm compresses. Come to find out, I did have the wrong flange size, which probably was the reason I kept getting clogged ducts while I was pumping. And even having low supply, I was getting clogged ducts. But I was never measured with my first experience. And so this time I was measured. And I was using a 24 last time and they measured me at 15 this time. So
common. And I think we're getting I used the 24 that it came with too when I went back to work with my first like 8 years ago because there was just no education and like milk came out, so I thought it was fine.
Mhm.
Um, way better. Like it makes a huge difference. Did you notice a huge difference when you switched down to a smaller size?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't like it came with a 24 and a 28. I knew I wasn't a 28. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I guess I'm a 24. I didn't know there's like all these million sizes. So then when I went back to work, like I said, I had an office with a door. I was working like a traditional 8 to 5. I was an administrator at a company that worked with people with disabilities. So I had the office with the door when I was in office, but I also did travel for meetings and, to meet with clients sometimes and stuff like that within a 3 county area. So like, up to an hour and a half away
Wow.
during the day. So when I first went back, I think they kind of didn't really have me scheduled to go that many places. They kind of
Sure.
knew I needed to ease back in, but I did quite a bit throughout the time that I stayed at that job, traveling, kind of most of my workday sometimes. So regardless, I had a little cooler that I was able to fit a really large, really cold ice pack in. And so if I was in the office, I would just keep that cooler in my office and it kept things as cold as the fridge. It's like like an 8 by 11
Oh, big
cold
one.
pack,
Yeah. Okay.
like a really big, and it's like, according to the marketing, it's, colder than whatever.
Cool.
I don't know if that's true, but it seemed to work. My baby was fine on the milk. So I kept that with me. I had like a pump bag with everything in it, like a couple of sets of pump parts for the day. I had a hand pump that I honestly was never able to make work, but just being so reliant on pumping the first time, I wanted to have something like if a part broke or, the pump wouldn't work.
Yeah.
My dog chewed through my charging cord during the hurricane
Oh, no.
to the Spectra. And thankfully my husband has like a electronics repair kit and he was able to repair it. But that was back in the day that there was no Spectras in Target or anything like that. So I had to like order from the Spectra website a new cord. So I kind of got scared about, if this pump can't get the milk out, I need a way to. So I had a hand pump with me all the time. But I just had that cooler. I would put some of the milk into bottles just to be ready to go for the nanny. And then if I, for whatever reason, had more, I had bags, like bags and Sharpies. Like I had everything in my pump bag. And then if I went out to travel around, I just used the same setup with the cooler. If I couldn't find a place to pump wherever I was, I would pump in my car. I had, for the office and for the car, I had one of those covers that is like easy to see through with the wire at the top. So you can like
Oh,
see
like just like I've seen those for breastfeeding covers.
Yeah, it's a breastfeeding cover.
Cool. Yeah.
But I liked that it was like had that wire so I could see the parts being hooked up.
Those are the
So I had a lot of women and mothers that worked for me. So I just would let them come into my office while I was pumping if they were close coworkers. So I had that cover so that I wasn't completely exposed.
Yeah.
And I listened to your recent episode with the lady with the clothes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about like what I did. I did get a whole new wardrobe, but I didn't have as formal of a job. I had like business casual. So I had just a bunch of like sort of flowy tops and then pants that honestly that first year that like were bigger than my normal size. So I got a whole new wardrobe. Just of like I didn't have to wear dresses. I just wore, tops and bottoms.
Which makes it easier.
I used the
button-up tops can help too if you need more like formal. But even like I remember postpartum wearing the pants that like went all the way up, just to kind of keep in the mom tummy anyway. So that actually made it really easy to like lift a shirt because my stomach was covered by my pants. So, I remember I think I wore my maternity pants for like quite a while after, like the stretchy ones, even postpartum because it would.
I did that for a while too.
Far up. Yeah. Instead of doing that like 2-shirt method, which can sometimes be bulky, but it works too, so.
And I'm in Texas, it can be hot.
Yeah, you don't want to wear 2 shirts in Texas. Oh my gosh. There's just so many logistics that come with being a working parent. And were you always able to keep a good pumping schedule, especially with such a varying job when you were traveling and going about? Like, how did you make sure that you stayed on your schedule to get your milk out?
Yeah. So I had a schedule, like an ideal schedule to get those 4 pumps in during my workday. I would pump usually right when I got to the office. Everybody knew I wasn't that much of a morning person. So 8 a.m., unless it was like really important that I be in a meeting at 8 a.m., people kind of let me ease into my workday and like, check emails or do whatever quiet work I could do in my office. So I typically would pump right when I got to the office to get that first one in. And I would wake up and nurse the baby and pump like a couple of hours before that. So I'd have time to get ready. So it was pretty good timing anyway. And then, I had a schedule that was my ideal. I would pump a couple of hours after that and then a couple of hours after that. So like 8, 10, 1, and 3, I think were what I liked to do, but I couldn't always do that. So I would just make sure to get those 4 pumps in. Like if I had to be in a meeting from 10 to 12, I would know I could try to get another pump in at 9:30 right before the meeting, or, stack the pumps. Like I just always had them on my schedule for the day.
Yeah. Did you put
And
it
I think that was
actually on your
important.
schedule, or was it just kind of like in your brain, this is when I'm going to be pumping?
I think when I first went back, I sort of blocked them out on my schedule, but then as I got into the groove, it was more in my brain. And I remember the first meeting that I was in going back to work that ran long. And at that time, engorgement is still more of a thing. I was like feeling so full, like what's going to happen? Should I try to leave this meeting, or, it was an important meeting, should I stay? And so I had to navigate all of that. But I had decided I was so committed to breastfeeding after I felt like I had done so much work, during those first 12 weeks, pumping around the clock and all of this, that I wasn't going to give it up. So I was just completely committed. Like, there was no question if I was going to continue pumping.
And on that note, I noticed that you pumped like through 18 months. I think it's really common, especially for working moms, to kind of hit that 1 year mark and they're like, I'm done with this. What made you want to keep going past that 1 year mark?
Well, my baby still wasn't really transferring that well. So I kind of felt like I had to keep pumping to keep my supply to be able to give him milk. And I really wanted to be with him. I didn't really want to be at my 8 to 5. Because I was just so excited to be a mom. I wanted to, I was missing him all day, every day. So it felt like a way that I could still like give him my milk. And I liked the immune benefits. He was able to get better from illness quicker being on my milk. And I was just afraid that I wouldn't be able to keep nursing if I quit pumping, which may or may not have been true. I don't know. I did continue to nurse for quite a while after, but I know my supply dwindled down after that, which could have just been natural,
Yeah,
weaning age.
it is too. But I think that surprised me the first time, especially that I remember that I had a baby. Like he didn't know it was his 12-month, his 1-year-old birthday. And nothing really changed in our breastfeeding relationship because he turned 1. So I remember thinking the same thing, like, this doesn't really feel like the time to just stop what I'm doing. So I guess I'll keep going. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, nothing special happens on that day. And for
Right.
a lot of moms, I think they get there and they're like, well, now what do I do? Like, I was only planning to get to this point. And I think, like you, some moms are like, well, this is working for me. I'm just going to keep going until it doesn't, you know?
Yeah. And I ended up quitting. I was able to leave my job to start working on these businesses that I'm working with now with my husband. And so that changed. I was home with the baby, trying to pump all these times a day, which was even harder than trying
I
to
was going to say,
pump
that sounds harder
at a
actually
job.
than pumping at work.
And then my pump response and my supply were going down so much that it got to a point where I'm being way too stubborn. Like I'm pumping to get a half an ounce, which is like really silly.
Sure. But that's normal too. Like your supply goes down as they start eating more solid foods. And I
Mhm.
mean, but it is hard to see that number go down, especially when you worked so hard to get it up. I find that a lot of moms do struggle a little mentally with that natural weaning process, just watching those numbers go down and down. It's just hard to watch, even though we know it's normal. We know this is like part of the process. Was that true for you as well? Was that a little bit hard to just watch them go down and down?
Definitely. Totally. I had worked so hard to get the milk in. Then it was like, why is it going down?
When did you notice it start to dip off? Do you remember?
I think after a year.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Did you, so were you making just enough milk for your baby once you got it up after that like 11 weeks of hard work in the beginning?
Yes.
Or were you making
I
like
had
extra
like
over that?
one day by the time I took my first day back at the office. I
Okay.
had one day in the freezer.
Yeah.
And then it was all this stress of like trying to explain. We had my older stepson was staying with us at the time, and he was able to take care of the baby a couple of days a week. And then we had a nanny the other days. And my husband worked from home. So it was nice that someone was able to be there kind of watching the childcare. So being stressed out about them doing like pace feeding, and like I would work so hard to pump and come back and they'd be like, I fed him 17 ounces during the day. I'm like, what? Why did you feed him 17 ounces? So
where you had the benefit of knowing how much they take. I think sometimes it sounds like you were a lot bottle feeding at that point. So you kind of knew how much he took in a bottle and knew what to expect and could even teach the nanny, which is great. When you're feeding more at the breast and then jumping into that transition back to work and bottle feeding, that can be a really hard part for people because, the child care provider feeds them 17 ounces while you're gone. And you're like, see, I don't know.
I don't know.
That might be normal. I don't like, I believe you that they were hungry, but feeding from a bottle is really different than feeding from the breast. And babies really do need to be taught how to take in an appropriate amount of milk. It's always that balance between, we don't want to starve our babies. We also don't want to overfeed our babies, which when you're bottle feeding, you have to manage that.
Yeah. And I didn't realize, because I was so grateful that we were able to latch at all, after we did the revision, we weren't able to latch. And then we, got to the point where we were able to latch and have that part of the relationship. I was so grateful for that. I didn't really realize until I had this baby that I have now, that's 7-month-old, how much I was really more of an exclusive pumper. And that was my mindset, because going into this experience, I really wanted to be able to nurse at the breast more. I wanted to, do whatever I could to help him be able to transfer. And so I pumped right off the bat just to make sure, in case he wasn't transferring, that my supply came in.
Okay.
Because I knew from my previous experience, it was way harder to build a supply at 3 weeks than it would have been had I started right away. So I started pumping on day one, just after the feeds. I was getting the colostrum and giving some of that by syringe. But he did great. He was, nursing at the breast and gaining weight and having the right amount of diapers, and everything was going great. And it was such a mindset shift to be feeding at the breast, not knowing how much he was getting. I did get a scale last time at the advice of my lactation consultant. It's accurate within a half an ounce. So it's not like what you'll get at an IBCLC's office, but it's enough to kind of see, are they gaining weight, over time. So I was kind of obsessively trying to do weighted feeds with him at home and like see if I could count up how many ounces he was getting. But it's just really different when the baby is nursing at the breast and doing well. Yes. It's a completely different mindset.
You're right. It's totally different. And I think a lot of moms struggle with this, especially when they've been feeding at the breast on maternity leave and then go back. And now you have to see the numbers in the pump. And for one, you don't know what's normal or what to expect. And then two, the pump isn't really managing your milk supply, and neither really is the baby anymore too. They're like both doing it, which can be really overwhelming because now you have two variables in this whole milk supply. When you're feeding at the breast and baby's growing well, you don't really have to think about the numbers, right? As long as they're eating enough enough times during the day, they're having wet diapers, great. And then all of a sudden when you go to bottle feeding, now there's all these numbers and we can't, like you said, it's really hard to measure what they take in while they're feeding at the breast. And so how do we translate that to bottle feeding? And I loved what you said. It really is a different mindset. Feeding at the breast and pumping and bottle feeding I know they're both feeding the baby, but they really are two very different skill sets.
And I did have a little bit of that experience when I, like around 11 weeks, my supply was up with my first. And then I went back to work at 12 weeks. And also at that time, we were doing weighted feeds every week because I was going to this oral motor therapy. So we were able to see he was transferring like less than a quarter ounce, less than a quarter ounce, less than a quarter ounce. And then at 11 weeks, he transferred 2 ounces in a feed, which was like cause for huge celebration.
Amazing.
But then I had been seeing those pump numbers. I had been, tracking my pumps from that 12 ounces in a 24-hour period to go up to 16 ounces, 20 ounces. And then I was getting, 24, 27. And then when he started transferring better, those numbers went down.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, I don't know. How much am I, what is my supply doing? So I did have a little bit of that, but it's been even more different to have a baby that is feeding exclusively at the breast. He's actually refused bottles. So now I'm about to have to leave him, and thankfully he takes a cup now. So we're going to just hope he does okay with the cup.
Go for it. Yeah.
But it's even more different. And then like how much is left over when I pump a couple of times a day to donate, that changes. And you can really overthink it, I think, when the baby's doing well and,
it's a lot. It's just so, and everything you said, I know moms will resonate with this because I hear this all the time from moms in my program. All of the things you just said, like, I don't know. And watching the numbers go down, even though you know why they're going down, because baby's taking the milk directly from the breast, for some reason is really mentally difficult. It's just, there's just so much more that goes into breastfeeding and pumping than just the act of doing it. There's so much mental work and challenges that come up for moms. And everything you just said, I think almost every mom, especially in the working environment where they're combining both in some way, have felt that. So did you have an oversupply from the beginning with this second one? Did you kind of create that by pumping on?
I created it on purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to have, I would rather err on the side of too much milk this time, just because I knew how hard it was to not have enough. Now, I did see a lactation consultant prenatally, and then at 1 week she came over, which if your listeners have the ability to have a lactation consultant come over in that early postpartum, it was amazing.
So helpful. Yeah.
And she had to tell me multiple times, you're going to have to stop pumping so many times. You're creating a massive oversupply that's going to be really hard to manage. So I was pumping the first day. I started pumping like 6 times a day after feeds.
Okay.
And then I was just assuming that the baby couldn't transfer. So I'm thinking, well,
you had a
I'm probably not doing enough
last time. Yeah, it makes sense. Just for our listeners, that is too many times to be pumping.
Yes.
Your baby is feeding well at the breast, but based on your experience last time, I probably would have done the same thing. Like, I am not doing that again where we have no milk. Like, we are making this work. And then what did you do after that?
He was assessed to have ties in the hospital, and then at that 1 week. So I was just really assuming that he wasn't able to nurse.
No, absolutely.
So I was pumping 6 times a day, and I forget exactly how I knew, but I'm pretty sure I knew I had a full supply of milk based on him gaining weight plus how much I was pumping at like a week. So like we knew that it was trending for a pretty big oversupply.
Okay.
And so the lactation consultant was like, you're going to have to cut back to 3 times a day. And I was like, no, you don't understand. That's not going to be enough. And she's like, no, really, you're going to have to cut back to 3 times a day. And then if you see the baby not gaining enough weight, you can always add another pump in. But right now you're trending to get a massive oversupply that, trust me, I've done it to myself. I had a similar experience. It's going to be really hard to manage. So I reluctantly listened to her and went down to 3 times a day, and then got scared and went back up to 5 times a day, and then listened to her again and went back down. And then I guess around 4 weeks, I started getting clogged ducts, and I was like, okay, I think maybe she was onto something, that like I'm pumping 12 ounces on top of my baby growing, like gaining more weight than necessary. And then I'm pumping 12 ounces. Like, we are going to have to try to cut this back. So I'm grateful that I had outside input into that, because I would have just kept pumping 6 times a day and created a massive oversupply.
Which is also really exhausting. Aside from dealing with the oversupply, which is honestly not easy to do, that's so much time you were putting into milk extraction, both feeding the baby and pumping. Oh my word,
Yeah, my husband was like, ever since we got home from the hospital, you're either attached to the baby or attached to the pump.
Which you probably were. Oh my goodness. So what did you do at that point when you kind of realized, okay, I have enough milk, I can relax a little bit? Did you readjust your goals on what you wanted, or kind of where did you go from there?
I was really just waiting for the wheels to fall off with the tongue tie. I was
Still
not sure what to do, but he was gaining well, but I'm like, sure, this is a fluke of just my oversupply that it created. And, we're going to have to make a decision about doing the revision or not. And so I was really agonizing over that, and just, thinking that things were getting worse and worse when probably I was just stressing. Looking back, we had opened our photography studio at the same time, so like a major shift in
A lot.
schedules and taking the baby to the studio, and then also stressing about breastfeeding and thinking that it wasn't going well. So his weight gain had been like picture perfect on the curve, like exactly. He was just growing right on the exact curve, like 50 percentile.
Yeah.
Was his curve, and he was exactly on it. And he started to, shift off of that. So I'm thinking, oh, here we go. He's not able to transfer anymore. What am I going to do? And then with my first experience revising ties, things got really worse after. So then I'm thinking, well, this is going to be the end of being able to breastfeed. So hopefully people have been there and can understand the craziness of my mind at that time.
Yeah. If anyone who's had a baby, yes, they know. Like, yes, this is your one job. And like when you think you're failing or you think that it might not be working, it is absolutely devastating. So there's zero judgment for me and I think probably any other mom listening, like, what it feels like to be in that panic mode. And like, I just want to do what's best for my baby at any cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make the right decision, and I just wasn't sure what the right decision was. And so I ended up deciding not to revise, and I just believed that things were getting worse, but I was going to make it work. I was going to figure out how to supplement, because I had the milk, if the baby wasn't able to transfer, I was going to figure out a way. He wasn't taking bottles, but I'm like, maybe he will, or we can get him going on a cup early. Sure. But I just kept doing what I was doing, trying to supplement. He didn't seem to want the supplements, and his weight gain just kind of like came back. Like it wasn't falling off a cliff like I had thought. It was just kind of taking a dip, which I think if you're obsessing over weight gain and numbers and things, you're going to see more of those natural variations that if you're not that worried or haven't, had a reason to be that concerned, you're not going to see that that's what every baby does. They kind of gain weight at one rate, and then they gain weight at a different rate, and then they come back, and it's okay. So I ended up just I tried to supplement with bottles and syringes and cups, and he didn't seem to want it, but I kept trying. And then I was just watching his weight gain on my scale at home, and it was okay. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we don't need to supplement, and things are going okay.
It's so interesting because, like, as a lactation consultant, I've seen growth charts of, they do follow the general curve, but almost no baby stays right on the line, and some variance is really normal. And so like when I was doing that back in the office and weighing babies and watching their curve, I honestly didn't show the growth curves to the parents unless they specifically asked, because of what you're describing. Those normal variances, it can look like they're falling off the growth curve. But when we talk about falling off the growth curve, me as a professional, I mean that they are like, it's you can see it. It is like bad. You know what I mean? You were growing and now you are not, not really that like variance between, 30% on either side of what they were doing, because you're right. They kind of go up and down and kind of come back as long as the overall trend looks right. But I think when you get into that, over analyzing and just, you had reason to. Your first experience it was not easy, and your baby wasn't gaining weight well. So I would have done the same thing, to be honest. But I think you make some good points there that kind of obsessing over those numbers and really like watching everything can make it hard on yourself. And I don't know, do you feel like you put a lot of guilt on yourself? And I don't know, what could you have done to make it easier on yourself? Or do you think that that's just what it needed to be for your experience?
Yeah, I think I did feel guilty that I didn't know the first time. Like, had I known what to look for to know that things are not going well. So I think there's a lot of like focus in the breastfeeding community on things probably are going well, because there is so much cultural pressure to think that, oh, I can't eat the same way when I'm breastfeeding. I can't, I'm probably not going to have enough milk. And those things are not really true. Most people can breastfeed. And so any of those cultural messages that they can't, or I think the breastfeeding community has fought back against those. But to me, I like go to Google and search, you know, Kelly mom or whatever, and it's saying the first time, things probably are okay. I call the hotline of lactation consultants. Things could be okay. Part of that was probably just my overwhelm,
Sure.
not having ever done it the first time.
Yeah.
But I think just knowing, like, when you really know that things aren't going well, you can trust that things are going well unless these things happen, unless baby isn't having enough diapers, unless they haven't regained birth weight by a certain, time frame. Had I been more prepared for that, I would have caught it sooner, and I could have, started intervening sooner with my first. So I think that there was guilt, and I wanted to kind of make sure I didn't make the same mistakes the second time, but I kind of went into overdrive.
Yeah, I think moms expect that they should be like experts too, like right from the beginning, And there's a reason that we have experts, lactation consultants and pediatricians that are experienced with that can help you. Like it's really our job to catch those things, And so it kind of breaks my heart when I hear moms like you say, like, I wish I could have caught it and like fixed it. And honestly, 2 to 3 weeks is about the time that we give babies and moms time to figure it out. And we just assume it's going well unless it's not. If they haven't regained their birth weight, like you said, by that 2 to 3 week mark, and you met with multiple lactation providers and your pediatrician, and like you did everything right, and they caught it in probably the same time I would have, like you give it a little time and assume it's going okay, and then it's not, and you correct, and so I think really the key is finding support. It sounds like you had an amazing lactation consultant, and I honestly want to get her name so I can write her a thank you because I love all of the things that she told you and that she advised for you. And I think for moms, finding that person that you click with and that has experience in what you're doing, don't be afraid to shop around providers. If you see a lactation consultant and you're just not jiving, or you'll know, right? Find another
Definitely. One. I think I counted up, I think I saw 5 lactation consultants, and thankfully that one that I told you was so amazing was the first one that I saw. But then having the revision, there was lactation consultants in that office that followed up, and then the oral motor therapy person was an IBCLC as well.
Oh, cool.
And definitely I would encourage people to shop around. And to me, I really needed someone to be encouraging. Like I didn't just need the facts. I needed encouragement. I needed, advice to make it work in my life, because it's one thing to explain, how to pump, how often to pump. It's another to be able to look at a new mom's life and like help her know that she's going to have to prioritize. She's, the lactation consultant even went as far as to say, like, why are you cooking? Get a rotisserie chicken. Like, you're going to have to cut things back to make this work. So she's amazing. I've heard people describe her as like part lactation consultant, part therapist, because awesome. You go in and she's able to help you, but also like help you process. There was emotions, I didn't want to be exclusively pumping. That wasn't my, idea of what it was going to be like. So there was emotions to process, and just finding someone that's really able to help you, that you click with, is important.
Yeah. And did you have that system set in place before you had your baby with your first?
No, I did have a doula with my first birth because I wanted to have an unmedicated birth. So that highly recommend that as well. If there's any pregnant moms listening.
I know I used to be a doula too, so I have a special place in my heart for that. It's super fun. It's great.
Amazing. I ended up having a super fast, like precipitous birth. So I didn't have, what I was worried about, like a 12-hour labor where I'm going to need someone to, help me through that. But her being there for the time that she was, like during transition, was, priceless.
And sometimes those fast bursts, like you have to process things really quickly and you don't have time to like labor. Like sometimes the fast ones are tricky too, like mentally.
Definitely.
And just kind of be
and
like,
then
what the heck?
Being able to talk to her afterwards, she did postpartum work too. So she came postpartum a couple of times, and she was encouraging me to reach out for help with the breastfeeding because she could tell that, I needed help. But I did not have lactation consultants, picked out when I was pregnant. My hospital was baby friendly though. And so
Okay.
they sent a lactation consultant to the room when I was like, 1 day postpartum. But that was like a lesson in breastfeeding,
Sure.
a
Yeah.
general lesson. So it was probably too soon for them to know that anything wasn't going
It
well.
is. Yeah. Hmm.
He was born a little bit early. So they kind of thought that any trouble he was having was just like sleepy 37-week
Sure.
baby. So we had that. And that's just who I called back when I was finally wanted to go see somebody. I called back to the hospital and ended up with this amazing lactation consultant that does outpatient visits there at the hospital.
That's so great. There's a lot of resources for moms looking for IBCLCs to help. There's the hospital you delivered at probably has some on staff. You can also look at your local WIC or what's the other word? I had a lady come to me after my first. She wasn't with WIC, but she was like a home. It was not social services either, but it was some kind of services where they just went and visited new moms, and she was at IBCLC. That was really nice. You can also Google, lactation consultants near me and look for some private practice ones. If you find one that takes your
Mm-hmm.
insurance, great. Some of them charge, you pay out of pocket for them too. Most insurances are covering several lactation visits. So call somebody, right? And maybe just have a list of who to call. If you're pregnant, I think just starting with where are my resources if I need them, I think can be a really big help. Even if you don't meet with them before, just at least knowing where to go to get some help.
Definitely.
And did your lactation consultants help you with the pumping as well? Did you find that they knew a little bit about that, or did you have to figure a lot of that out on your own aside from the schedule?
I mean, they knew more than I did because I knew nothing. But I had to figure out, like, I remember trying to put it together for the first time. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I found like a video maybe from Spectra, how to put it together. That was overwhelming. And then, like I said, I never found out that I was using the wrong flange size.
Yeah.
I don't remember how I figured out like the letdown button and like that kind of like what cycles to put it out. I think I asked and the lactation consultant was like, well, whatever it defaulted to is probably fine, you know?
Yeah.
So no, I wouldn't say that I got, a lot of help with pumping. I did get help with like the practical managing pumping, like the fridge hack and like having multiple sets of parts and washing once a day and those kinds of tips, being able to sleep while I pump. She helped me with a lot of those kinds of things, but like physically pumping, maybe not so much. She definitely encouraged me to massage, and that helped a lot when I was trying to build my supply.
That's a great idea. I think, sometimes I see like posts on Facebook or something, where moms are like, somebody help me. Like, I can't get milk output unless I'm like massaging and touching the breast the whole time, like, what do I do? And a lot of times I'm like, that's a pretty normal way to pump. Like,
Mm-hmm.
a pump is not a warm, cuddly baby. I mean, so sometimes we just do need a little bit of extra help there, and that can be really normal. I also really like that your lactation consultant really tried to find that balance of science and practical for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I do a lot inside of my program as well. And one of the things that I really love is looking at the science and then also finding a practical way to make that work for you. And most of the time, moms can make their own decisions. There are some practices that are just like straight up unsafe, right? And we tell you. But like the fridge hack is a perfect example of science and practical and just understanding how it works and the risks and the benefits. And then if this needs to fit in your life that way, great. Sleeping while you're pumping, there's benefits and risks there too. But sometimes that's what we need to do to make things work. And that's one of my favorite things to do as well, is kind of figure out how to marry those two things together so that you can hit your goals with the least amount of friction.
Definitely. And seeing so many lactation consultants, I saw ones that leaned more, science only. And I just ended up like really interested in what they were telling me, but less able to, take it in without getting discouraged. So I think that's important for when you're getting support. Make sure that it's the type of support that's going to help you reach your goals. That's really what all of us are trying to do is, maybe we have to adjust our goals along the way. Like, it's going to look more like exclusive pumping for me the first time than I wanted, but I was still able to reach my goals of nourishing my baby with my milk for over a year.
You've donated quite a bit of milk this second time around, haven't you? Have you enjoyed that experience?
I was not anticipating how much I would enjoy it. I just ended up I started pumping this time, and just like I said, I couldn't really make myself stop because I was just so worried that I was going to need to pump to have a supply. So I ended up with more than I needed. And I was either going to like have to buy a big freezer and put a bunch of milk in a freezer or donate it. So I was like, well, I'll see if I can donate some for now, and we'll see, what I want to do from there. So I actually was able to get linked with just informal milk donation, which I know, again, benefits and risks. Yeah. But it's been really rewarding to be able to help. Like the first lady that I donated to had a pretty similar experience that I had. She, worse than I had. She had like complications post-birth that impacted her ability to bring her milk in, but then also her baby wasn't transferring well. And so I was able to give her milk during that time period that I needed formula. I was able to give her my milk, and then she built her supply up to where she didn't need my donations anymore. So I'm now donating to a little baby that was adopted. So he's able to have.
That's beautiful. I love that. What a cool thing to be able to do. And it's interesting to hear how I think oversupply kind of gets, I don't know, people are really like very for it or very against it. And I think you're a perfect example of how sometimes it is just what works best for that mother and family and baby. You know what I mean? Do you need all this extra milk? No. And you kind of did it to yourself. But the situation for you made sense, right? And now you're still pumping on top of breastfeeding and donating milk to other babies, and this works for you, and this is what you like. And so I think really just finding peace in, if you understand the process, make your own choices, and feel good about it, and don't let anyone tell you. I mean, I am glad that your lactation consultant did tell you to cut back a little bit. Otherwise, you would have had just like an overwhelming amount of milk. But I'm really happy that you've been able to find the thing that works for you and that makes you most comfortable, even though both of your experiences kind of looked a little bit different than you thought they would.
Yeah. And I think it's good that I had that outside input to help me so that my oversupply isn't like negatively impacting the relationship. We aren't having multiple mastitis, and we're not having a baby that's like choking on the milk. It's just a little bit extra that I can donate. But you're right. I think that it gets a bad, like, definitely don't bring in an oversupply, it'll be horrible. Or, I have noticed this time, like I did a bunch of research when I was pregnant this time, just to get like, I definitely don't want to do that again. So I found your videos on pumps, and that's how I ended up on the Will Go. I watched like all your pump reviews, maybe not all of them, but a bunch of them. But I can see if you were an exclusive pumper, you may not mind having a massive oversupply, and just if that works for your body, pumping a whole bunch of milk on the front end. So you're right. It's just what works for you.
Yeah, I love it. Well, as we kind of wrap up our chat today, is there anything else you would like to share with moms, especially those moms who are either working or combining breastfeeding and pumping? Any last tips or advice or just words of encouragement that you'd like to share with them? You've had a vast array of experiences, which I think is really cool, and a lot of moms will enjoy hearing you speak about.
I hope so. I'm really grateful that you had me on. It's really fulfilling to me to try to give back to other moms. I would say encouragement, definitely get support, get all the support that you need. So if you're trying to navigate whatever your experience looks like and you're struggling, get support, whether it's a program, like your program, a lactation consultant, a postpartum doula. There's lots of ways that you can get support, friends and family. If you, know somebody who has a nurse who might be able to give you encouragement, just always keep looking for support, because it's not easy. It's not something that is just going to happen without, getting the support that you need. And if you don't need support, you're probably not listening to this podcast. And then I would say, for those that are combining breastfeeding and pumping, definitely do not look at what goes around social media of people pumping, 16 ounces at a time. And, that's not going to be normal to your experience. If you're combining breastfeeding and pumping, it may be if you have a massive oversupply, but most people are not going to be pumping that much. And you can totally feed your baby for a long time without pumping those massive amounts. And what I learned from my lactation consultant, that you're going to have to prioritize if you're going to be working, pumping, breastfeeding. Look at how you can make all of that fit, whether that looks like getting some support, whether that looks like cutting back on some area of your life so that you can fit this in. It is really another job to breastfeed and pump, especially during that first year. So think about ways to make it work for you.
I actually just talked about this on the previous episode of the podcast with Caitlin, where we talked about, trying to fit all the rocks and the pebbles and the sand into one jar and really just prioritizing, figuring out what's most important to you and how you can make this all fit. Because you're right. We listened to Anna talk about how she was like triple feeding, especially on her first maternity leave. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you fed the baby and you pump 6 times a day. Or like even with the second one, you have no idea how much time and effort that takes. And not only are you sitting down to feed the baby at the breast, but you're also attached to a pump and you're also cleaning pump parts and bottles and storing milk. It's like, I mean, you probably have like 25 minutes extra in your day when you're not doing milk stuff, It's just, until you do it, I don't think you realize how exhausting that schedule is. And I appreciate you sharing your story and experience there. I think it will help other moms, I think, at least feel not alone. Like a lot of these feelings and emotions and schedules that you described are very common. And I think just knowing you're not alone and people have gone through this and made it work for them can be really helpful.
I hope so. I'm really glad that you invited me on. And I hope that my story can encourage people. And I just wish that more breastfeeding stories were told. I think there's so many different experiences, and I'm really glad that you're letting moms hear these stories on your podcast.
That's so great. If you need help with breastfeeding and pumping, and specifically in the work life, please let me know. Anna listed off several other resources, and I'm not the only resource, but I do think that finding someone who does exactly what you need, if you need help latching your baby and we're dealing with poor growth and we've got stuff like that, find a local lactation consultant that can help you with that. If you want help with pumping and going back to work and making all of this work combined together, that's exactly what I specialize in. And, I've said this before, but lactation consultants, they don't get trained on pumping. And I am working hard to fix that. We're coming out with some courses and programs to start training professionals so that more lactation consultants can have pumping experience and be able to help more mothers. But in the meantime, if you're a mom and you need help, please reach out. We have an application process so you can get on a call and talk with a member of my team. We like to make sure that this is actually the support that you need before you make that investment, because like Anna said, in the early days, she needed someone there, like hands-on with her, looking at that baby, measuring weight and stuff like that. And I can't do that virtually, right? And my specialty really is pumping and combining that with breastfeeding. So again, if you want to talk more with me about that, you can find links down below in the show notes. But thank you, Anna, so much for being on with us today. I really, really enjoyed talking and getting to know you, and hopefully we can speak more soon.
I would love that.
All right, bye.